that's what I wanted to capture in the story. But also I wanted to capture the culture of the people when I arrived, because they would do weird things. Mm-hmm. Well, I thought were weird things. Like, why were they always digging in their backyards for gold? That's what I was at.
Hey, Taylor. So besides being a lawyer and a businessman, you are an author.
Yes.
Yes. You've written how many books?
6.
6 books. What's your first ever book?
Why Should I Care? I'll Be Dead. That one was because all these guys would come into my office and say, well, why should I care? I'll be dead. And so I was like, well, that sounds like a great book. I should write it. So I wrote Why You Should Care.
And most of these books are educational, right?
Yeah, most of them are, of course, have to deal with what I do, estate planning.
So this specific book that we have here, I don't know if you can see it. Let me show you. Ituy. This is more about your adventure or your experience in this very small country called the Philippines.
Yes, this book is about, I call it an adventure to the end of the world. It's because about my time that I went to the Philippines, and I was a missionary, and I went to a very unique place in the Philippines, where you're from. And
guys, it's a story for another time, but
yeah. But the reason why it's called Ituy is because that was the ancient name given to the valley up in the mountains when the Spaniards first arrived. That's what the people called it there because of the tree that grew there. An Ituy tree. Do you want to know what Ituy means?
Yeah, what does it mean? Renz, please put this in the earlier part of the video.
So Ituy comes from, at least what the people told them, from the Ituri tree. The Ituri tree, there was a legend that was told to me by an individual, and the symbol that you see on the front, I took it off the front. It's on the back now. That symbol right there is the symbol of an Ituri tree. And what an Ituri tree, the story
what does it symbolize?
There was a merchant who went up into the mountains because when he arrived at the Cagayan River, this was before even the Spaniards came, he was looking for gold. Mm-hmm. And the people down the river had gold, and they kept saying, well, it comes from the kingdom up in the mountains. And so slowly he worked his way up the river, and eventually they started telling him, well, they'll cut off your head if you go there. You got to be careful. And so this merchant thought very long and hard about what he was going to do. And so what he decided to do was offer a gift to the king of the mountains. Mm. And so when he arrived, he brought the Ituri tree. Oh. And the Ituri tree was this small tree. Mm-hmm. And the king was a little offended. That's what at least this man told me, that he brought this tree to symbolize the king. And they asked, well, what does it mean? And the merchant's like, well, when you plant this tree into the ground, if it's planted in a place of high winds, then the roots will go really, really deep, and it will go really, really strong, and it will grow a fruit on it. And this fruit attracts the tarik. It's a type of bird. Mm-hmm. And the tarik will eat the crickets in the field, and they will kill off the crickets. And so you should plant this. And it became, in his place, a symbol of the king, because a king stands high in a difficult place, and he becomes strong through adversity. Mm. And then it's his job to protect the people. And so
that's amazing.
The king of that area, which is around Dupax today, was known as Ituy. The belief was when the Spanish arrived, they said Ituri, but they heard Ituy. And so But most of those people were killed off when the Spaniards arrived through diseases. So that is what Ituy means. But I call the book that because that's the ancient name when they arrived. So that is the legend of the Ituri tree. And it became symbolic
History lessons from Taylor.
It became the symbolic story of my mission. I went someplace far away. I was planted in the soil. And through adversity, I grew very strong roots. So in the book, I talk about that your roots can grow strong when you face difficult things.
Yeah.
But you need some place that has high wind. You got to put yourself into places that are difficult.
Not in your comfort zone.
Yeah, if you're in your comfort zone all the time, you don't get deep roots, and then storms come, they blow you right over.
I don't know about that. But he knows more than me.
Yeah, there's a story about the legend of the Ituy tree, but I won't bore you with that.
Yeah, but I want you to tell us about the book, like the gist of the book. Is it mostly stories of what happened, or more like what you've learned, what you've...
No, it is just a story of me. I went to the Philippines before I even left. I had to take 3 months of language classes in a thing called the Mission Training Center. And then after I went through that process, they shuttled me off onto a plane. And this was the first time that, of course, I flew to the other side of the world. And as I flew over the ocean for 13 straight hours and looked out my window and just saw water in every direction, as far as you can see, it was the first time in my mind that the reality hit me how freaking huge this world is. I mean, it is massive. My brain was sitting there on that plane trying to comprehend the size of the earth. Because I'm like, there's not one piece of land anywhere I can see. And I was glued to this window for hours. And this overwhelming feeling came, there is no way that there is a God. And I was like, I am heading to a third world country, a foreign country, to teach people about my religion and God. And I didn't even really know if there was one. And so I was like, what am I doing? This is a really bad decision. But you can't just reverse a plane, you know? Maybe I could have tried to open a door or something, try to get back, but...
Parachute your way out of it.
Was it built by Boeing?
Yeah. And the other part is it was, before I even left, I didn't really comprehend, because when they drop you off on a mission for my church, you go for 2 years. And I remember watching my parents walk out of the room and go, oh, shoot, this is for 2 years. Like, that's a long time. Like that's a 10% of my life. I'm leaving. And it was like all these shocking moments that happened at once. And then where the reason I call it the end of the world is because when our ancient ancestors left Africa about 70,000 years ago, that's when most archaeologists and anthropologists and historians think that Homo sapiens sapiens, who we are, left Africa. Well, they left and crossed the Red Sea, and they walked along the southern part of Asia, and they kept to the coastline mostly. They would venture out, but most north was ice, because most of the earth was an ice world back then, and the sea levels were about 200 feet lower. And so they walked along, and they traveled for about 50,000 years. They traveled, and the first islanders, well, they believe that Luzon Island was an island at the time, but about 20,000 years ago, took about 50,000 years to get to Sunderland, is what they called the area that was now underwater. But to get to Luzon Island, they had to get on little boats or float over. And these people, known as the Ita, that are still there, they would have kept walking along the coastline all the way up until they got to the Cagayan Valley, where you're from and where I went on my mission. And that would have been the end of the world to them, because nobody for another 15,000 years would build boats to go out into the islands. But very literally, to our ancestors, this would have been the end of the world. There would have been no other place. So I call it the end of the world. That is the place where our ancestors ended their journey. In the very beginning of the book, I said, I go, that they headed eastward out of Eden, and this is where they ended their journey. And I ended up there somehow.
Did you get to pick where you're shipped to? Oh.
You open this letter, and it tells you where you go.
Very interesting.
Exactly.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's really so weird.
Yeah, it's very different culture. You do what you're told, and then that's where you go. So that's how I ended up going to the Philippines, and then having a crisis on my way going there. So,
well, so what made you want to write the book about your mission?
So I had some pretty incredible experiences while I was there. You know, some things that most people would consider proof that God exists. Mm-hmm. And those experiences were kind of overwhelming, but when I got back, my more non-believing nature took over time. And I was really struggling with my belief in God at the time. Mm. And so I would open up my journal and read the stories and go, I couldn't make sense of it in my mind. How could I have experienced that world where those things happened? And then also at the same time, at the moment when I was writing everything down, still have such doubts in any kind of creator or any kind of higher power or anything else. And so it was this struggle that I had of I was like two different people. And how could I reconcile that world? Because I kept devaluing my mission experiences as saying I was naive. Mm-hmm. I was more uneducated at the time, so therefore I attributed everything to some type of higher power that, you know, I would create new stories of how the things that happened to me could have happened and it not be God. And then as I was writing, as I first started to write the book, I started to write it as, oh, this is how you could explain these miraculous things that happened to me without a God. And then I think I wrote about 3/4 of it that way. And then I went back and I said, it's wrong of me to rob the man who had this experience to tell his story the way it happened. Mm-hmm. You know, the way I wrote it in my journal. And I understand very well that our minds are how we experience the world. And so I was such a believing person at the time that that's how I experienced things. So I wrote faith-promoting things down the way that I would see it. So sometimes people think that some of the things that happen are just unbelievable. And maybe they didn't happen the way that I really wrote it down, but I figured that man who had the experience should be the one who should be more writing the book. But I didn't hold back the stories because in my journal when I wrote it,
that's how it appeared.
Yeah, and there's things I left out because, you know, if it was embarrassing to me or my lack of faith or things like that, I didn't want to express that in the journal, but I made sure that when I was, okay, you're going to write as you wrote it in the journal, but those things you knew you took out to not tell the true story. And, you know, I put those back in when I wrote the actual story. And a lot of the story, it's a conversation between me and my companions, because that really is what a Mormon mission is. You walk around with this other guy that you barely know, and you just talk about the craziest things because no one wants to talk to you. Mm-hmm. No one wants to talk to Mormon missionaries.
You find people to talk to you.
Yes. Once in a while we run across people that will talk to us, but usually people don't. So the person you're talking to is your companion, and it's just another young boy. And, you know, you have your weird things that you think and the weird things that you say, and you get to know each other really well. Like you start talking about, oh yeah, when I was, you know, 15, I did this thing, and like you confess a lot to each other. Now, of course, I didn't put the confessions of my companions into the book because that's their personal stuff.
Wait, how old are you when you went to the Philippines?
Well, I was 19. It was 19 to 21, and that's how most of us were. We were that age range, and but you get to know some very personal things. But I wanted to more talk about like the things that we would tell each other, the jokes that we would tell each other, because sometimes you'd have funny companions that just crack jokes the whole time and would make fun of everything, and then other times you had very serious people, and then there's some that made my life miserable and I hated it, and so like that's what I wanted to capture in the story, but also I wanted to capture the culture of the people when I arrived, because they would do weird things. Mm-hmm. Well, I thought were weird things. Like, why were they always digging in their backyards for gold? That's what I was at. Huh, Therese? Why were they? She should know.
I don't know. I never did it before.
You never did any gold digging?
No.
You never saw it happening?
No.
Oh, well, liar.
No. Maybe in that part of the area, because I was in a city.
Yeah.
Kind of. It wasn't a city back then, but it's like a city.
Yes. And so when I was there, nobody knew the history of the place. I would ask. I was obsessed with history growing up, so I'd ask everybody.
They don't care.
Where are you, like, where's your family from? What's nobody knew anything.
Yeah.
I went everywhere and went to, like, if someone said, "Oh, he's a historian," I'd go talk. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't know anything. And so when I got back from the mission,
you researched.
I got the old, I found books and different things that were about the missionaries that first went there, the Catholic missionaries. Because that was one of my questions when I was there. I'm like, how in the world did they convert these people to Christianity? I mean, you got to think how absurd Christ's story really is if you're like an outsider. Oh, here's a guy. He lived in the Middle East. They don't even know where the Middle East is. They have no idea what you're talking about. He died for your sins, on a cross. Oh, and he was God at the same time. And you got to get wet to be forgiven of your sins. Like, those concepts, I'm like, we were, of course, trying to get people to come to our religion, our version of things. And, we believe some absurd things, really absurd things. And so we were trying to, but our absurd things, if you already are a Christian, are far less difficult to believe than
when you're not.
Yeah, because, I would run into some people who actually had the beliefs of the native Filipinos and, the Ifugao people. And they taught me, about Bugan and Wigan and, their belief systems that they had about how things came about. And I write about those in the book. And so for me, like, listening to those stories, like, when I listen, I'm like, oh, that sounds absurd. But then I'm like, well, I sound absurd to this guy. So that was one big part of the book I go through is who were the first missionaries, the Catholic missionaries that arrived there, and what did they do? And, and one, I guess, important part of the book that I found fascinating is the first guy that actually went to the areas that I was in. There's a place called Dupax del Norte. And, me and 3 other missionaries there had a very crazy experience where he got possessed. And we started having, before that, we had a lot of weird things going on that were very difficult to explain. But after all that, as I was reading the journals, I came across Father Thomas Gutierrez. He wrote in his journal that he saw the devil in Dupax and met him. And then 2 days later, he was killed. Or 2 weeks later, sorry. 2 weeks later, he was killed. Fell off a mountainside.
Wow.
Yeah. Very crazy story. And so I thought it was so weird that the very first missionary went there because Dupax is a little different. It was, when I arrived there, and one Ilongo gentleman said that's because their god was Limam. And Limam was a dark shadow that told them to go down from the mountains and cut off the heads of the lowlanders. Because these were headhunter, the people who live in the mountain were the headhunters. And so they're very different than the lowlander Filipinos. But the headhunting groups, they had very different ways of approaching things. And genetically, they are actually very different. The Ilonggo people, when they went and did their DNA, they are the oldest Filipinos. They arrived, if you look at them, they look Chinese.
Yeah, there are a lot of them.
Yeah, there's an interesting story of a pirate that when the Spanish arrived, they kicked him out of Manila, and then a Chinese pirate, and then he came back with a big army and tried to take over Manila again, and he lost, and then he fled up into those mountains with his military. And so the Spanish, when they arrived and they ran into the Ilonggo people, they thought that they were these Chinese and Japanese pirates that just over the years reverted back to being natives. And now we know that's not true. They are actually the oldest Filipinos. Filipinos now are a mixture of Spanish.
A lot of there's American, there's Spanish, there's Chinese.
And well, then they're also a mixture.
Mostly Spanish.
The Filipino people are Austronesian people. Austronesian people, they came from northern China about 15,000 years ago. Then went over to Formosa, or what's called Taiwan today. About 5,000 years ago, they were the first people to build boats, and then they came down to the Cagayan Valley. And so
to do what?
That's how they spread to the islands. They were the first boat faring people that then spread out throughout the world. So Austronesian people go all the way down through all the islands. So Polynesian people, Hawaiians, and they went as far as Chile. They know they had the DNA of people who are in Chile. There's some Austronesian blood in there. And they went all the way as far as Nigeria. There are Nigerians that have Austronesian blood. So they traveled pretty much everywhere. Madagascar, they're not African. Madagascar, the indigenous people of Madagascar is Austronesian people. So, which is very strange because Madagascar is right next to Africa. So that is what happened. And then, of course, those people who left on boats would come back, those Polynesian people, and they would intermarry with, or intermix with the Filipino people. So the Filipino people are a mixture of Austronesians and a bunch of different things. But the Highlanders, the headhunting people of Central
They don't mix.
They never mixed. They just cut off your heads.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds so intense.
Well, the Spanish attempted for 350 years to conquer them and never could. They never could because they just refused. One journal I read was very interesting because he said they live like barbarians, but every time we go up there, they'll be starving. And they said, we'd rather starve in these mountains than be the slaves in fields to you Spaniards. And I was thought, wow, that's pretty legit right there, And so they did that until the Americans showed up, and the Americans basically
Saved us?
No, they lulled the Igorot people out of the mountains with easier life, with technology. They finally said, okay, fine, we'll come down.
There are still some people who are still there.
Yeah, I ran into a couple old ladies up in the mountains sometimes. No shirts on, just wearing little loincloths. Then there's this white boy
Yeah,
that would shock them to death. They'd come out of the bushes and they'd just sit there and stare at you. Their boobs all the way down to their waists.
You have to see it, Michael.
I've seen National Geographic.
That was the 90s porno magazine.
Right.
So, how do you think your experience was? Did you enjoy it? Was it? I'm sure it was hard at first because it's a way different culture compared to the U.S.
I absolutely loved it. but I'd never ever go back to that life.
I was just about to ask if you were given a chance, would you do it again?
Not be a missionary.
You would go back, but not.
Oh yeah, I
not
want to go
as-
back just to visit. I've already gone back and visited once, but I'm going to definitely go back and visit. But what I did as a missionary is way too difficult. Like at the time, I loved it, but could I do that again? Absolutely not. It's like there's probably a lot of things people don't realize, like that you've done in your past. You're like, oh man, I'm so glad I did that, but I'd never do it again.
Never again.
Yeah.
Like law school.
Law school, taking the bar.
What about you, Michael? What have you done before that you loved but would never do again?
I don't know. That's hard.
Have a child.
Hard question. Yeah. Get married. Nothing really. Like I can
Really?
think of, yeah.
Yeah, there's.
I used to be in a lot of bands.
Uh-huh.
We'd play, late at night on the weekdays and have to haul gear and all that stuff. And there was no crowds, no fans. We just did it because
Just
we
played.
wanted to do it. But I don't think I'd do that again.
Yeah.
It's just not worth my time.
No, right? I don't know. I think I'm getting old. I would always say it's not worth my time. I would
Yeah.
always say that now.
That's, I think, why if we are reincarnated, why we don't remember our past lives, because we just were like, I'm never doing this again.
But it was challenging, you said. It was very hard at that time. You enjoyed it, but it was very hard.
Yeah.
But what do you think were the highlights of your stay there?
Oh, the
2
people.
years?
The people.
What about them?
There's no better people than the people in the Cagayan Valley. Like, they're the kindest. They were always happy. All they wanted to do is get together and play games. That was it.
And do karaoke.
And karaoke. Yeah, and do all the different things I told you about the first time I went to church.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there at church and getting ready, and then all of a sudden the karaoke bar starts going right next door, and it's like,
What song was it?
oops. No. Oh, lay me down on a bed of roses. Like some Filipino guy screaming that song at the loud of his lung. At the same time, why the Filipino people in the church were screaming as loud as they could the church song. So, like, LDS Church.
To drown
Yes.
the sound?
LDS Church in the United States, if you go to church, people sing like this. Da, 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 da. Like, they barely, like, it's like so quiet. And it's like everybody's like, in the Philippines, no. They scream the song.
Top of their lungs.
Yeah, it is. They are rocking it out. And I was just like, what is going on? Like,
We love to sing. That's.
oh, we got to pull that up.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, we saw that.
Dude, let me send this to you. Can you pull this up?
Yeah.
So there's some crazy. I found this last night. I sent this to Therese. It's this dude that sings. This Filipino dude that can sing better, and this is him singing probably the hardest song
One of the hardest songs. Yes.
to sing that Whitney Houston did.
Oh, the Dolly Parton song.
Yeah, but he sings it better than Whitney Houston does. Listen to it. Like, we can just listen to like 30 seconds of it.
Of you every step of the way. Oh my god, holy shit. And this is the chorus part. Yeah, go, please.
See how his voice changed when he talked.
All right, you can stop it there. Anyway, that dude, you would once in a while be walking, and you like middle of some freaking barangay, and there would be somebody at the karaoke bar that could sing like that.
I've tried belting that song out. I never get past through first verse.
Yeah,
It's so hard.
no, yeah, but like it's unbelievable.
It's so
Like
true.
you will find the most like vocally talented person in the middle of nowhere in the
Yeah.
Philippines, and you're like, dude, if you're in
Really
it,
good.
it's amazing. And so that guy, like, yeah, most of them can't do that. Most of them, it's awful, but they're still better than most Americans.
No, there are a lot of good but I think I don't know how to say this. The singing style of Filipinos is usually always like belting really high notes,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if we I think we have a few of world-class singers that's really good because their voice is really high, like Lea Salonga. Like, I don't know if you know Lea Salonga, the one who sang Reflection.
Yeah, don't ask
And
us.
anyway, Broadway artist, she's really popular. We have Charisse. We have a few singers there.
But you randomly have guys like that no
And-
one knows
but
about.
that's a guy.
Yeah.
So that's different.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you see how his voice changed when he talked? So here's a chorus.
Yeah. Then somehow he reaches like the highest note possible that you could possibly
And
do.
have the deepest voice at the same time.
Yes.
It's a good range.
So, but that's basically why I wrote the book was I wanted to reflect upon those things that happened to me that were pretty intense for me in my life.
Would you suggest your like people from your same religion to do mission work?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the greatest things you can do to personally develop.
It's not just about other people or getting other people to convert to your religion, right? It's mostly for you.
Yeah, like I baptized like over 50 people. I was a really good missionary. Like I could be very convincing. I don't know if I really changed any one of their lives, but they all changed my life. Like, and so like it wasn't for them. I realized like now or years later, I'm like, oh, this was for me, not for them. Like I thought the whole time I was converting these people to the true religion. And what I really believe is the true religion is you work on yourself.
Yeah.
And you become the best person that you can. That was a point that I had to come to in my like searching of realizing that if there is a God, it isn't him who creates religion, it's people who create religion. And I don't go to the route where people say religion's bad for you. I was like, no, overall religion's been very good for humanity. And for those people go, oh, well, all wars are caused by religion. Wars are caused by any
Men.
people.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'll use religion as a tool to manipulate other people. That's absolutely right. But overall, when you look at
the intention.
the intention, but religious societies tend to be more peaceful.
But there are a lot of new religions now. That's the thing. I don't know if it starts to confuse people of how it deviates from the basic, Bible stories and beliefs.
Yeah, I think that's a harder thing that with our generation, we've grown up with more information, so
We have more access to everything. Back then, what's being fed to you is like whatever is on the book or whatever is written. But now people can just look it up and just watch it and just see. I don't know if that's a good thing.
So yeah, that's the reality is there's, whoever put anything together in any way or wrote anything down, it's just going to be someone's perspective.
Yeah.
Even if you believe God put the Bible together word for word and did it exactly how he wanted and thought it was to create the perfect book. And if that's what you want to believe, that's great. But he had to tell a story in a certain way that we could understand, no matter And especially back in those days, if the truth is that, there was a big bang and then everything came about and we evolved from lower life form. If you're a god and you got some sheep herder that you're trying to convey this to, you're going to have to go,
How do I convince him?
or maybe that's not what you would do, right? If you were this all-knowing being, you wouldn't concern yourself with telling them factual things. You would be concerned with, how do I convey knowledge to this creature so it will try to be a better person? Well, the reality is you're going to have to tell, humans, we work through stories, mythical beliefs, we like those. The Bible's very good at that part. So whatever it was written for, whatever it was kept for, was to get us to learn how to behave, not necessarily to teach.
How to live our life.
Yeah.
It's mostly how we should live our life.
Yes. Just like it should be.
Right. Free will.
Exactly. Because I imagine if you get to the next life, even the smartest, if there is a next life, I'm not trying to convey anything, but let's say there is a next life and you get to know the whole truth. I guarantee you the smartest physicist in the world is way off. So if we can't get to that truth or anything like that, then we probably should just accept the fact that if a God was actually speaking to human beings, he would not care to teach us the actual truth of things. He would be more concerned on teaching us how to behave. Because that would
More
be
the lesson than the...
Yeah, you'd be like you had a 2-year-old child and you're going to be like, "Oh, well, let me teach you the factual things." Like, you're going to waste your time versus worrying how that child's behaving and be kind to other people and different things like that. So, now that doesn't mean that there is a God or anything.
It applies to life, actually. It's most of the time, like for myself, I grew up in a very strict family. Like our dad was very strict, and I never appreciated it back then. But then when I think about it, I'm thankful that he was like that, or our mom was like that, because otherwise I feel like I would have lived a more rebellious or different life than what I have.
And you'd have made choices that
I would have made choices that I would regret.
Yeah.
Eventually. So things like that, you don't really see the big picture of how you want it. It's not necessarily... I think you have to change how you convey the message in a way where it's going to be effective rather than beautiful.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, if you're gonna give an advice to any person who would go on a mission or would do something really crazy or life-changing, what do you think? What would you tell him? What would you tell the person?
You just go.
Just do it.
You go and you do it, and you do what you believe in to the fullest. That was one of the things that I found very odd. Like a lot of missionaries that came with me, they didn't. They went over there. They went over there because their family wanted them to.
Yeah.
And so they did it for their family. And so a lot of them would just stay in their houses every day and play video games. They'd go
So
buy
it's like a vacation for them?
It was not a vacation. Even when you're hot as can be and can't stand it and sweating constantly.
Very hot there. It's one of the hottest places in the Philippines.
Humid.
And humid.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, because
sticky.
none of us had air conditioning for the 2 years. So it was, you got a little fan that blew on you.
It's not popular having air conditions in that part of the Philippines.
Yeah, because it's expensive. But we were supposed to live like the people that we were teaching. That's what they told us. That's why they only paid us what the average person, which is funny because we would pay a bunch of money to our church to go, but then they'd only give us about 1/4 of that back, and then they would say, "Okay, you got to live off that every month." And so that's what you would do is you would live like the people were living, so you understood them, so you didn't behave in a way that would be like, oh, I'm better. And so a lot of them, though, they got money from their parents. Their parents would send them money.
Would send them money.
And so they could get their TVs and play their video games, and that's what they did. But I was lucky that everybody that I was with in every area that I went, we call them companions, like they just wanted to work. They didn't want to do anything else. They just wanted to work every day. So I got up at 6 a.m, study for about an hour and a half, and then work till 9 o'clock at night. And that was what you did every day. Except for Monday, you got 4 hours to go do what you want.
Takes a lot of dedication.
Not really. When you start doing the same thing every day, you don't even think about it. You just do it. And so you get into this habit and this pattern, and then all of a sudden, like...
Is that what made you an extrovert?
No. I was an extreme extrovert before. When I was a kid. Yeah. It actually made me more introverted because I started reading a lot. I became obsessed with reading. Because you're not allowed to watch TV. You're not supposed to read anything but your scriptures. So I became obsessed with reading my scriptures. So I'd read the Bible like 4 or 5 times by the time I went home. And then the Book of Mormon, and then Doctrine and Covenants, and different things that we have that are extra scriptures. But I would just keep reading them. And like I would become obsessive over like trying to find patterns and different things in them, and got very weird. But I enjoyed that. But I actually became more introverted. Before all I wanted to do is go.
Maybe
play.
you just got tired of socializing and talking to people. That
2 years of it, all the time.
2 years every single day.
All day. Talking to people that don't want to talk to you.
Are you an introvert, Michael? Extrovert?
Probably introvert. I
Introvert?
would think, yeah.
Yeah, he'll talk if there's like something to talk about.
Me too. I think I'm an ambivert. I'm in the middle of both.
Everybody.
Like it depends on where I am.
Yeah.
Okay. So where should we if the listeners want to learn more about your book, where can they access it?
You can go to Amazon. That's where I sell it at. I refuse to let I self-publish because I refuse to give it to like a publisher because they'd make me change it. And
Make it.
Yeah, I wanted to tell the story the way I thought it happened, the best way I thought it happened, and didn't want any kind of interference with the way that I was putting it together to make money off of it. I don't care if anybody ever reads it. I didn't write it for everybody else. I wrote it for me. Wrote it for me and for my companions so they could go back and read it and remember what happened.
Well, we will flash on the screen the Ituy, but we will also flash on the screen your 5 other books that we will eventually talk about, and very educational.
Yeah, those ones will be more educational. But this one was my favorite to put together. And Amanda, she was my editor that went through and like, this is awful. She tore it apart. She is the best
Who?
editor. Amanda?
Who?
They used to work for us.
Okay, Schultz?
Schultz, yeah.
Schultz.
Yeah, she used to work for me. She was the best editor in the world.
Really?
Yeah, because she was so brutally honest. She's like, you're a horrible writer. Let me fix this for you. And then she would go in there and they're like, oh, yeah, I guess that is a lot better way of saying it and doing it. But she made it way better. Even when I got to the point of saying, it's done, she's like, oh, this needs way more editing. You need, I'm like, I'm done. I mentally can't keep writing this book. And so, but, I think it conveys the story. I should have cut it down even more because it used to be 800 pages. Now
Really?
Yeah, I had to cut out a ton of stories. I probably should have cut out about half the stories I have in there right now.
Really?
Yeah, because like
What's your favorite part of this book?
my favorite part of the book,
Yeah.
probably when
Like if you're going to ask someone to read a chapter or a part of the book, just one.
Well, my favorite time was I was in Dupax. My companion got possessed. We got emergency transferred out. That's where they like show up and like, you guys can't stay here anymore. And so they moved us out. I went to a place called Bagabag.
Magabag.
Yeah, that was my favorite time. That's where things got like even more like intense for me. So like that was a time that like everything kind of flowed for me. I could finally speak the language very well, and so I could communicate with people. Because even up to Dupaux, I still struggled to talk to people, and it was like a year in. Like I could talk and converse, but only about religious concepts. By Bagabag, I could talk to Nanai Petra about whatever she wanted to talk about, you know. And so when I was there were just crazy things that were happening all the time. Like I've told you a story. Like that was a time where I was sitting in somebody's house, and this lady was talking to me about reconciling with her husband, and that she was going to do it sometime in the future. And then all of a sudden, this thought came to me to tell her, "You don't have that much longer." And then she was like, everybody was all weirded out that I said that, and I'm like, I remember leaving, going, "Gosh, that was so stupid. I can't believe I said that. That's so awkward and everything." And then a year later, I got the letter from, there was a girl that would come with us, telling me that her husband had died. And I was like, oh, that was so weird that I knew how, like,
Dang.
to tell him that, you know, it wasn't going to be much longer. And that was also where I told you about, like, I was giving the lady a blessing, and
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden I told her, your daughter is going to come back to you. And I was like, what the hell am I saying? This is so weird. All of her daughters are sitting in this room. And then, you know, afterwards, them telling me that one of their older daughters had run away years and years ago. Like, there was weird things that started happening like that.
That made you believe that.
Well, no, at that point, I was full-on believer.
Oh.
I got to the full-on believing stage where when weird things would come to my mind randomly, I would say them. Mm-hmm. And then I'd be like, gosh, why did I say that? So stupid. I remember would would always feel like, oh, I can't believe it. That's so awkward. Why are you saying stupid stuff like that? But before that, I'd never say anything that would come. But by then, like, I felt very, very thing. And that's where, like, Akbar Sabir, he was a Muslim guy that I taught and then wanted to become a member. And then I was like, oh, I don't think are we supposed to be teaching Muslims? And then I called my mission president. He's like, well, I didn't call him, but I sent him a letter, and he's like, drove up. He's like, you can't teach them or baptize them. Like, I was like, oh, shoot.
Why not?
Because we have our church had an agreement with the Muslim faith to not proselyte to them. Oh. Because that's what he told me, that he had read everything, and that he knew that his family would kill him for but he was going to convert. Even
until now? Is it still
Yeah,
there?
it's still the same. There like in America, we don't. We're okay with people's safety, but in the Philippines, we're not. So, like, when he told me, you know, hey, I'll join your church even if my family kills me, I was like, oh, shoot, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Like, that was like the cue in my head. Like, this is probably a bad idea. Like, and but he was like the most faithful man I ever met. Like, he taught me more than I ever taught him. Like, he really believed in God more than any Christian I ever met there. He was.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But Bugabug was the place that I had so many crazy things that happened that were just great.
It's crazy whenever you tell me stories, because I can actually understand what you're. So for the Filipino listeners here, this is a book about his adventures in Cagayan Valley.
Yeah, especially if you're from the Cagayan Valley.
Especially if you're from there,
yeah.
It's worth the read.
Yes, I need it. When I go there to the Philippines, I'm going to take a bunch of books.
Just give it away.
I'm just going to give them to people that be like, hey, this is about your place here. But I think we need to get to the next part.
The exciting part.
Yeah. So I was messing around.
Which I don't know.
She didn't know what we were doing.
What are we doing?
So I was messing around, and I was reading something about, like, you could put a picture in of somebody, and it will pull up other pictures that they have on the internet. So who's the first one you have up there?
Jamie.
I'm scared.
Well, let's do Jamie. Let's see. This was a random picture of Jamie. She's in our office. That was found on the internet.
Obviously, mid-sentence.
Right in the middle of the sentence. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, who is this? Who is this? Zoom in, zoom in.
Oh, it's Andrea.
It's Andrea?
Yeah, that was Andrea when I put her picture. It's amazing that I put her picture in now and it pulled up a picture of when she was a kid. Oh, who's this?
Carla.
There's Carla randomly getting drunk somewhere.
Wait, why are my palms getting sweaty? It's on there.
Let's keep going. Oh,
that's me last year.
that's you. I found this randomly pulled up this picture of you in Dubai. All right. There's who is this?
Is that Jamie again?
That is Jamie again.
That's Jamie.
That's Jamie with plucked out eyebrows. Who is this? Who do you think this is?
Oh my gosh, that's Lane Lou.
That is Lane Lou. Who is this? Let's zoom in on this.
Oh, Rochelle.
Oh, it's Rochelle.
Yep, that's Rochelle. Some wedding. It's weird that the random pictures it pulls up. Oh, who is
Oh
this?
my god.
Zoom in closer. Who is this? Oh yeah.
Good lord.
How it knew this was you is amazing.
My gosh, that's me.
Yeah, this
15 pounds ago.
that was how long ago was that? And
That was a long time
you
ago.
had the most by far. It pulled up pictures
Because I would have like this organization, the Breaking Silence Movement. It's an international movement created by one of my best friends about for domestic violence.
It's amazing it caught you.
Victims.
Okay, which one is Therese?
Please don't.
Zoom in.
I was so young.
Do you see which one's her?
Yeah, I was so
there?
young.
Yeah, that's it.
That's crazy.
Can you imagine you? I put a picture of you now in, and it knew that was you.
I know.
That's crazy. That's like shocking. Huh?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Goodness.
When I saw this, I got a little worried that all of a sudden there might be others, but I was like, okay, no, there's nothing out there. That's it. There's my wife.
Oh.
Found Julie. Let's see what else.
Oh, that's
There's-
me when I was working for National Food Authority.
Yeah, you looked very bored in that picture.
Very
I
serious.
think that's because I was in the government, so I had like
You're
a
like,
lot of.
To be at these meetings and listen to people talk. This is you.
Me and my family.
That's your family. I figured that was.
Yeah, that's my sister.
Yeah. Alrighty.
That's it.
That was it. And then I randomly found Jeff. It only found one thing, but it's not a picture.
It's a video?
It's a video. And can you find Jeff's video here?
Yeah.
We'll pull it on up, and it was a video. I don't think
Those photos need to go.
they're on the internet. I just want you to know that
No, they need to go.
there were other ones that I did not put on here.
A lot.
You have a lot.
Probably a lot of photos on there.
Lesson is be careful what you allow
What
to
do
be
you post on
posted,
there?
because this is what AI was able to pull up
Oh,
right now.
Right now.
There was a lot. Like I could find nothing of Michael. He scrubs the internet very well.
Do Americans support Ukraine?
Do I play it?
Yeah, let's play it.
How to kill all mosquitoes in the
Oh,
area
this
in
is
just
the ad that they put on before.
a simple but brilliant trick you can do tonight.
So, what do you know so far about the war in Ukraine?
I know it's been going on since roughly in January last year, I think.
Yeah.
I know that it really started probably the precursors, Crimea and the issues from like 2014, roughly. I know that Putin's an ass. I think that we should be supporting the Ukrainian conflict. If I were Zelensky and someone came to me and said, okay, look, we'll hold some kind of UN supervised regional election and let how do you say it, Donbass? How do you say that region? Yeah. Let them decide where do you want to be and then draw the border lines there.
So that's kind of why Donbass and Luhansk are kind of in the position where they're at, because they seceded from Ukraine on their own all the way back in 2014.
So
they didn't want to deal with it. That's what really.
Let them be their own people, right? Let them do their own thing.
He wants Russia out of there, and he's not going to stop until they're out of there. If that's what Zelensky's views are on the East, and he's not going to go out, does that change your opinion on the amount of funding and aid that we're giving to Ukraine?
I mean, perhaps.
Yeah, all right. So there's Jeff Reddick randomly, like, and I thought that was interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens eventually.
Well, we will have him as a guest next podcast.
Yeah. So I just wanted you guys to know
I can show you one of me.
that's randomly out there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see it.
Ooh.
Let's see the Michael. Like, I went and found, like, all of mine are just things that are up on my webpage. I'm like, oh, guess no one else has ever wanted to post a picture of me.
Well, I think mine too. It's mostly just Instagram because my Instagram's public.
I got all those from, like, government sites and different
Well,
things.
government sites, yes, because
Or newspapers.
I would have like some articles.
Yeah, I had no idea where some of those places were. Like,
I've been around the Philippines because of my NFA job.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, you had stuff all over the place. You had more than anybody else by far. Wasn't even close.
So I actually, that's funny because one of the guys I dated back then, they looked up my name
Yeah.
on the internet. I was like, don't do it because there's just too much on there. But his family did. So
They
saw
said
everything.
you got to break up with her.
no. But they saw a lot on there, like photos and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even for work.
There's nothing out there that you had that was bad.
I don't think so. I don't think so either.
I just, when I got to you, I finally realized, oh, I probably shouldn't be looking at my employees because I don't know, like, if it's going to pull up something inappropriate. And then I was like,
Supposed to do that before you hire us.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, this,
We should have done. We should have done one for everyone.
I
So,
tried-
like an introduction of our firm.
yeah, well, I tried to get, like, as much people as I could, like, but I didn't have EJ's picture.
Oh my gosh! If you pull up Ej,
He's everywhere.
he's everywhere.
Oh my gosh. It's like, but he hasn't ever sent me even a picture, so
I have a lot.
I could have got him.
You ready?
Let's see, Michael.
Not a picture, it's a video.
Ooh, even better.
So can you guess who's me?
Are you the black guy? No, it's good.
Yes.
That's you. Oh my gosh!
Oh my gosh.
How long were you in the band?
We started it in 2000 to 2002, maybe. It was a short band. For my stay, I left because we were going to have Eric. So I had to kind of stop. This is Hard Rock Cafe in Dallas.
Oh,
Battle of the Bands, and we won it that night. Got on the radio. It's me turning myself up.
you guys were pretty dang good.
We were all right.
Yeah.
So did you have like managers and all that, or it's
No,
like
we did
self-managed?
everything all ourselves. Yeah. It was easy to book around Dallas. Deep Ellum is where we would go. This wasn't Deep Ellum. Hard Rock was up the street, but in the downtown area. But yeah, you just figure out who to
Talk to.
talk to. It's club owners and whatnot. And word would get around. Other bands would want you to play with them, or we'd want to go with them, another band.
Was it your dream always to be in a band when you're growing up?
Kind of. Well, not always. When I got into guitar, yeah, about 14. Didn't really have any dreams or aspirations before that, but I got into that. And yeah, started a band at 14 or 15. Because I remember I had to get my mom to drive me.
And where was that? In Athens,
It
Texas?
had been in Athens, yeah.
Man.
We were horrible.
Yeah.
Awful. I still have recordings of it.
Still, but you gave it a shot.
Yeah.
That's where you learn, though.
That's where everything starts.
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
Yeah. Be okay with being awful.
You'll never know if it's gonna work out or not
Right.
until you try.
Like our podcast.
Like our
Right.
podcast.
Yeah, I don't know who. Somebody posted this. Has Sub TV.
Oh.
So I put it on the internet, and somebody grabbed my video. Like, I made that video.
Oh.
Because my brother was at the show. He was taking camcorder video. The audio was horrible, so I just put it to the actual studio version.
That's all. That's what I always wanted to do. I would always want to have like a camcorder to just record everything. A gem.
So he took it from me and then put it on the web, and he got more views because he had a bigger following.
And you never reported it, right?
No, I didn't even know it was there till this is probably, I don't know how old it is. He put it up 3 years ago, but the video is probably 10 years
there
old.
There are like comments on it.
Yeah.
How many? Oh wow, there's a lot. How many views is that?
2,700.
Oh wow, that's nice.
93 likes. It won't show you the dislikes. It's like the
dislike.
I don't know. Well, YouTube did that at some point.
Yeah, but
People got sensitive, I guess.
I wouldn't care. Of course, there's a lot of people that won't like things. So
Yeah.
Can't please everyone.
It was actually.
I don't want to, right?
That was the hardest thing because remember I said I had a big old YouTube page and that got taken down right when YouTube got started. I did legal videos and different things, and that was like one of the things that made me not want to start up again.
What?
Was all the negative
Views
comments, and I was like, I thought like. I didn't realize like, oh, there's just people that sit around and trash other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was so
Trolls.
foreign to
They
my
don't have-
personality.
They don't have anything better to do with
Yeah.
their
It's like
time.
that meme with the guy with like 14 laptops on his bed.
Yes.
You don't know crap about physics.
Can you mansplain this to me?
Right.
He's like, yes. But it's like, I didn't know that, like, that's just how some people are.
Yeah.
And, like, they're just trying to get, like, and so it's
They're
like.
taking their anger out on the
No,
internet.
it's so true. Yeah, even my Instagram, it's public, right? Like people would message me or would private message me a lot of like requests. I never replied to them. Like I never
Look at them.
I mean, I would get the notification. I would see it because my phone's like
Oh, yeah.
you can read everything whenever it pops out. But like there are a lot of negative comments on there.
Yeah.
Like why don't you post beach photos anymore? Why do you keep posting like wholesome
Yeah.
contents like all school and all
A
that?
favorite comedian of mine, Mark Norman, back in his early days, he goes, "Girls, can you just do like a swimsuit page instead of me having to scroll through your family photos?"
No.
It's so true though, because that's how I got like followers when I started posting like beach photos and all that.
I wonder why.
I wonder why too.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a
You
little.
just get rid of it. Just don't respond.
Yeah, it's but I understand why it's like it's hard to keep doing it because you're just like
Yeah.
it's like I probably should just create it for me, and that's like this podcast we do all kind of we talk
I know,
about
we
different
just-
things
yeah.
because this is not for everybody else, it's for us.
Exactly.
We're gonna talk about what
you can
we're
listen to our conversations if you want.
Yeah,
We talk about all kinds of stuff.
dumb stuff.
Sometimes smart too.
Yeah. Hopefully, sometimes, right, Michael?
Yep.
All right, I think that's it. I don't got
That's
anything
it.
else. Let's wrap this up.
Guys, link will be below so you can access it and just worth a read. Promise.
All righty.